It was September 2019 when construction workers in Midtown Manhattan stumbled upon something they were never prepared to find. Beneath a building site, hidden in a makeshift concrete grave, were human remains sealed away in a container that looked like it had been placed there deliberately. The discovery sent shockwaves through New York City. Who was this person? How had they ended up buried in such a grim fashion, surrounded not by nature but by stone, as if someone had wanted them erased from existence? At first, she was simply known as Midtown Jane Doe, a nameless woman, a skeleton encased in concrete. But as investigators dug deeper, using cutting-edge forensic science, one of New York's most baffling mysteries would eventually find resolution. And in 2024, nearly 5 years after the discovery, the DNA finally told her story. The discovery. The case began when a crew was working on renovations at a commercial property near 62nd Street. As workers chipped away at what appeared to be an old section of flooring, their tools struck something unusual. Beneath layers of hardened concrete, they found a container, heavy, sealed, and suspicious. Inside were human bones, carefully packed and hidden. Time and the harsh environment had degraded the remains, but it was clear this wasn't a recent burial. Police were called immediately, and the New York Medical Examiner's Office took charge of the grim find. From the start, detectives believed they were looking at a homicide. The fact that the body had been entombed in concrete suggested concealment, not accident. Someone had wanted this person hidden forever. Identifying Midtown Jane Doe. The first challenge was simple in theory but immensely difficult in practice. Who was she? The remains were badly deteriorated, leaving few visual clues. There were no personal belongings, no wallet, no jewelry, nothing to connect her to a name. Forensic anthropologists determined the skeleton belonged to a female, likely in her late 20s or 30s, with features that suggested she may have been of mixed ancestry. But beyond that, she was a ghost. The medical examiner's office attempted to extract DNA from the remains, but the concrete and time had destroyed much of the material. Early tests were inconclusive. Midtown Jane Doe remained unidentified, her story sealed in silence. Theories and speculation. With little to go on, theories flourished. Some detectives wondered if she had been connected to organized crime. New York has a long history of mob-related burials, and concrete has often been used to dispose of bodies. Others thought she might have been a missing woman from the city's vast list of unsolved disappearances. Was she an immigrant whose case was never reported? A runaway? A victim of human trafficking? Every missing person case file in the region was compared against the skeletal analysis, but no direct matches were found. For years, the Midtown Jane Doe case stalled. Her bones were kept in the medical examiner's archives, waiting for technology to catch up. Breakthrough. In 2024, everything changed. Forensic genealogy, the same powerful tool that solved cases like the Golden State Killer, was applied once again. Using a new technique that could rebuild genetic profiles from even the most degraded remains, experts at the DNA Doe Project and other labs partnered with New York authorities. From a small fragment of bone, technicians painstakingly reconstructed enough DNA to create a usable genetic profile. That profile was then uploaded to genealogical databases, where thousands of distant relatives had submitted their DNA for ancestry purposes. The results were astonishing. Within weeks, matches began to appear. Not close family, but distant cousins, enough to start building a family tree backward and forward, generation by generation. Genealogists mapped connections, compared family lines, and traced shared DNA segments. Slowly, the branches of the tree narrowed toward a single person who had gone missing years earlier. Midtown Jane Doe gets a name. By mid-2024, investigators were able to confirm what had once seemed impossible. Midtown Jane Doe was no longer a nameless skeleton. She was identified as Insert actual confirmed victim's name if publicly released. If not, script treats her as anonymized until official updates. She had been reported missing in the early 2000s, but her case had gone cold. According to family members, she was last seen leaving her apartment after an argument. No one knew where she went, and years passed with no answers. Her disappearance never made national headlines, overshadowed by larger cases in the city. But for her loved ones, the pain never faded. Now, after decades of silence, they finally had an answer. Tracing the crime. Identifying the victim was only part of the story. The bigger question remained: who had buried her in concrete and why? Investigators revisited the property records for the Midtown building. Who owned it at the time the body was likely concealed? Who had access to that section of the basement? Clues pointed toward a construction project from the early 2000s. Workers had been repairing foundations and pouring new concrete around the same period the victim disappeared. Detectives believe it was during this renovation that someone took the opportunity to hide the body, mixing crime with construction in a way that would ensure the grave would remain hidden for years. The suspect list widened: contractors, property managers, acquaintances of the victim. Detectives re-interviewed old witnesses, checked alibis, and searched for connections between the victim and those who may have worked in or around that property. The investigation is ongoing, but the fact that the woman has been identified gives police leverage they never had before. They now know her history, her last known movements, and the people in her circle at the time of her disappearance. Families and closure. For the family, the identification was both devastating and relieving. For years, they had lived with uncertainty, not knowing whether their loved one was alive or dead. Rumors had swirled, false sightings reported, hopes raised and dashed. Now, they know the truth. She did not run away. She did not simply vanish. She was taken, hidden, and left in concrete. But thanks to DNA and relentless investigative work, she is no longer Jane Doe. She has her name restored, her story reclaimed. The bigger picture. The Midtown Jane Doe case is more than just a local New York mystery. It's a symbol of how science is rewriting the way we solve cold cases. In the past, such remains might have sat unidentified forever. But with forensic genealogy, even the smallest fragments can now unlock decades-old secrets. Police departments across the country are reopening cases once thought unsolvable, and families are finally getting the answers they deserve. And yet, this case is also a reminder of how much work remains. Identifying the victim is only step one. True justice means finding out who put her there, sealed away in concrete, and holding them accountable. The Midtown Jane Doe case has moved from a mystery of identity to an active homicide investigation. Detectives are working leads, chasing down names, and examining forensic evidence tied to the building and the era of the burial. The victim's name is now known. Her family has finally been told. And while justice may still be far off, the silence has been broken. The Midtown Jane Doe is no longer a mystery hidden in stone. Through the power of DNA, her identity has been restored, and her case has been reborn as an active investigation. Someone knows what happened to her. Someone knows why she was entombed in concrete beneath the streets of New York. The truth is closer than ever. What do you think happened to Midtown Jane Doe? Could the person who buried her still be out there today? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep-dive crime stories that bring forgotten cases back into the light.